The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. My name's Matt from Soft Solutions. We're a local distributor for StorageCraft in New Zealand. Also on the webinar with me is Carl Thomson. He is the lead sales engineer from StorageCraft. Today we'll be discussing aspects around HeadStart Restore and the importance of high availability in the StorageCraft solution set. Please feel free to type questions as we go along and we will answer them on the way. And please also note this will be recorded and we'll be sending it out to everybody afterwards and it'll be posted on YouTube. Carl, would you like to start?
Cool, thanks Matt. So yeah, as Matt said, I'm a sales engineer at StorageCraft, so I'm going to be running through the webinar today. It is fairly technical, however I will start off with a high-level overview, and I want to talk about the differences with our pre-staging HeadStart Restore technology as well as the complementary VirtualBox technology and how those two fit together, and just really the importance of being able to recover quickly. These solutions are a part of Shadow Protect. They're free, they're not extra licenses, so it's good to make sure when deploying a backup solution that you've architected it in a way that we have a speedy recovery available. So just to again, I'm going to start with a couple of slides. I just want to talk about the Shadow Protect solution and how these bits fit in, and then we'll go in and have a look at a bit of a demo of that as well. So the first thing is understanding the problem, and it's actually addressing business continuity. And the key thing to understand is where we're likely to need to recover, because this is a big thing. We have StorageCraft has a disaster recovery as a service platform in the cloud, but understanding actually 80% of issues, application, operational errors, ransomware would fit right across that. It's a really big concern. Then you've got 20% hardware operating system security, that kind of thing. That is a statistical causes of downtime. I think the key thing really out of this is that natural disasters is actually just 3% of where problems happen. So 97% of the time, people actually just want to recover quickly right back to where the problem started from. They don't want to bring up one VM in the cloud or one in a DR site, because then there's a networking constraint and then they've got to bring it back. So having that in mind is a big part of thinking about how you deploy on-prem. So some of the key challenges that we're seeing out there is that 85% of critical systems are not backed up adequately. So what that means is people are, in some way or form probably trying to back these machines up, but they're not backed up adequately, in that the recovery might take days, or it's on tape or USB drives or something that hinders the restore time. And that's a really big thing to consider when architecting a solution. Data growth rates are a massive issue, because obviously the more data there is, the more to back up. We've then got to store it for a period of time, or we've got to get it off site. So Shadow Protect tackles these issues really well. Up to 40% of backup restores fail, and that's a big thing as well. If people aren't testing the backups, they've got no way to know if they're working, and that's important. Should be part of your regular plan to test backups. And then obviously, the ransomware losses are a massive issue and a key reason for people wanting to address this stuff. So focusing on recovery, that's the key, of what we're talking about today. High availability, the ability to recover quickly, without taking days or hours to recover. So looking at on-prem, I love this diagram I put together. It's a real high-level way to explain. We've got the Shadow Protect software that performs the backups of your physical, virtual, Windows or Linux machines to some local storage on site. Now, Shadow Protect can be very easy to set up. We can set up a Shadow Protect job in a couple of clicks. We could just back up to another hard drive on my PC or to a USB drive. The reality is we want to consider what's the better way to do this? Where should we really be backing up to as part of best practice? So ideally, having a physical server as your backup and disaster recovery server offers a lot of advantages. This might have direct attached storage. One of the things is that this is going to run our included Image Manager software. So Image Manager effectively allows Shadow Protect to do what's called continuous incremental backups. Every 15 minutes, 24/7, that's 96 backups a day. That's nearly 700 a week. So Image Manager is going to keep verifying everything. It's going to consolidate to end of day, week, and month, and then it's going to use retention to manage that. So this is really powerful. Obviously, the more servers you have, the more work Image Manager has to do. So in an ideal world, we have a physical box that's running Image Manager with direct attached storage. and that will basically manage all of those backups. Now, if we had a small environment, what we could do is leverage what's called VirtualBoot. So VirtualBoot is going to boot directly off the backup image onto that physical server. So it would leverage either HyperV or Oracle VirtualBox to virtualize those backups, and they'll just start booting straight away off the compressed backup. Additionally, if our production environment is running HyperV or VMware, we may actually choose instead just to virtual boot straight back into those production hypervisors instead. So this is a very quick way to boot off the compressed image. Regardless of how large those backups are, it starts booting straight away, and obviously, depending on which virtual boot technology you use, it may just be a temporary VM that we then are going to talk about HeadStart Restore next, or if you're booting into vSphere, it can transparently migrate the VM back into production. Obviously, the limitation with virtual boot is one, it might just be a temporary VM, which we still have to migrate, or two, it's booting off a compressed image, so there is a performance hit while it boots up and reads everything and starts going. So they're a key thing to understand. But then what we do is we've got what's called HeadStart Restore. So this was the topic of the webinar, is pre-staging. So there's a couple of different scenarios, but HeadStart Restore is an included feature in Image Manager. As of about a year ago, it was introduced as a standard included feature. Prior to Image Manager version 7, HeadStart Restore used to be a licensed feature. So really cool, it's now included for free. And HeadStart Restore can be either used to go from a temporary virtual boot machine to pre-stage back into production. So i.e. on this BDR server that you've built, you might virtual boot into Hyper-V, into temporary VM, or into Oracle VirtualBox. While that's running, we might go and free up some space back in production, and then HeadStart Restore will pre-stage that. While we're still running in virtual boot, it's restoring all of the new backups into the original hypervisor, enabling a very rapid cutover. So and this can also be used for P to V migrations. As the backups are coming in, it can pre-stage them. The other scenario is enterprise disaster recovery. So perhaps instead of virtual boot, we could say, as backups come into my backup server, Image Manager will automatically pre-stage them into a standby VMware data store or on a Hyper-V server. So instead of virtual boot, we could say, oh, we've just had a problem. Image Manager, I want to finalize my HeadStart Restore, and you can choose a point in time. You basically set what's called a lag window. You finalize a backup, say I want to go back to an hour ago or 2 hours ago, and within minutes, it can have finalized that virtual disk, which is then ready to boot. So I guess I've called it Enterprise DR because obviously you need extra storage, maybe extra SAN storage to house a second copy. You've got your production environment, you've then got the backups, you've then got your HeadStart Restore virtual disk. So it might be another SAN, or it might be an older server where you had spare storage available. And you might have a mix. You might have some servers where virtual boot's more suited, and maybe some more critical servers where performance is a key factor. Straight away you want that performance to be there. So, it's not, I guess in a technical sense, they're not high availability in that it's not an automated failover, but it is offering you very rapid recovery. A recovery time objective for virtual boot and HeadStart Restore could be sub 15 minutes, versus paying for a SAN to SAN replica. And quite often in those scenarios with high availability, you still need a backup product, to sit in on top of that to give you the retention and the incremental backups. So this is where Shadow Protect can actually fill a solution. And, obviously there's a manual cutover period, which isn't going to suit everyone, but it's giving us rapid recovery by pre-staging. So obviously from here, this is a big focus on how you architect on-prem to leverage that, but then following that is your offsite replication. So getting a copy automated offsite, leveraging the StorageCraft cloud for disaster recovery as a service, or replicating to your own remote site for some of those capabilities. Again, whether you construct an environment that can facilitate virtual boot or HeadStart Restore would be up to you. Obviously, worst case, we have recovery available offsite with those features. So, the key thing is forget about just a backup product. Look at a disaster recovery solution and how you would architect that. As I've kind of touched on the licensing, really you just need to focus on the shadow protect physical virtual socket models of what's best suited. And then really the virtual boot, the HeadStart Restore, the replication are all included at no additional cost. The StorageCraft card obviously has a monthly service fee associated with that. But you may just be remoting to your own data center or own remote site, and we provide all of that technology at no cost. So it's very simple. Some of the key things, obviously Shadow Protect is sector-based backups. It's taking a full image of the system, which means when we restore a system, it's exactly as it was before. It's not like you have to reinstall Windows and restore files. We restore the entire image, which means it's very quick. It's got the same server name, all applications, everything's just there as it was when we did that backup. The other key thing, by being consistent, what I'm referring to there is that Shadow Protect has its own built-in VSS provider. So we'll talk directly to Exchange, SQL, SharePoint, Active Directory, VSS writers to ensure that we're getting a consistent, stable state backup every time. Protection every 15 minutes with zero impact. So what Shadow Protect's able to do is it tracks the changes in real time. This has no impact at all. It's done in the low-level kernel of the operating system. As it does a backup, VSS is an application aware, gets a stable state snapshot of the machine, and then it writes that into an image file. A typical backup takes less than 30 seconds. Because we're using our own in-guest agent, there is no hypervisor stun or snapshot, and therefore there's no impact or disruption to the end user in terms of doing this throughout the day. And that's a massive thing. There's still a lot of technologies where people will only back up once a day in the evening because of the disruption. Shadow Protect gets around that problem. Recover in minutes. By having these images, by setting up the capability of leveraging Virtual Boot or HeadStart Restore, we can rapidly recover. Physical and virtual support. Any backup can be recovered to anything. It's all hardware independent restore capability built into our solution. The image management's powerful. Again, we don't want to keep taking full backups. Full backups take ages. They take up heaps of space. We need to look at dedupe and WAN optimizing when we go down that path. So by doing a continuous incremental backup, leveraging our image management, our image manager software, it will automatically consolidate and apply retention without having to go back to those production servers for another full backup. Centralized management, so that's another key thing, is our shadow control gives us central visibility across all of our sites or customers. So very easy for a single pane of glass. So let's just take a quick look at Virtual Boot and then HeadStart Restore to really understand the difference. So Virtual Boot supports 3 different hypervisors: VMware vSphere, Microsoft HyperV, or Oracle VirtualBox. The great thing with Virtual Boot is it's fantastic for quickly testing and verifying my backups work. It's great for a system recovery or a system migration. It's included at no additional cost. Virtual Boot is basically free to recover any Shadow Protect backup. The VirtualBox option enables you to rapidly boot backup images as VMs without integration into Oracle VirtualBox. So if you've got a mix of physical servers or Hyper-V or VMware, or we support over 12 different hypervisors, you could have Oracle VirtualBox sitting on any Windows PC or server, and it can instantly virtualize into a temporary VM to get that machine up and running, and that buys you time to repair that PC and restore it back, or repair that server and restore it back. So VirtualBox is just a temporary VM offering a rapid way to get that machine up and running. Oops, sorry, I just clicked something on the map. Let me just roll back here. Hyper-V. Hyper-V, again, if you've got existing Hyper-V Server 2012 R2, we now also support Windows 10 and Server 2016 hypervisors, so with Hyper-V. So this enables us to virtual boot directly into Hyper-V. So instead of Oracle VirtualBox, we can instantly boot a Shadow Protect backup, again, regardless of how big that was. Hyper-V can start booting that within a minute or so. So very quick, obviously. It's booting off a backup image, so there is a performance hit there, but you want to look at how you build your backup server to, where are those backup images, where is it writing to get that read-write performance. That's the biggest thing to get the best performance out of VirtualBox. It's also great, even if you just want to virtual boot directly back into a production Hyper-V server rather than having a temporary backup and DR server. we can boot directly into an existing Hyper-V. So that's really cool. And then vSphere. So our vSphere virtual boot and offers, as well as Hyper-V, instant recovery into ESXi. The benefit with the vSphere virtual boot is it can perform a permanent and seamless migration. So this is patent technology leveraging the VMware VIO filter program, certified as VMware ready. And again, it allows you to leverage that existing VMware environment just to recover directly back into that production workload. So you can instantly virtualize, you can migrate physical to virtual, as with all of our virtual boot scenarios. The cool thing with virtual boot is that the hypervisors are talking directly to the backup. So even with vSphere, it talks directly to the backup image. It's not routing it through a virtual machine that's performing the conversion. So that gives us a very quick way to recover. We don't need any virtual appliance or secondary conversion process, which can slow that down. I don't know what's happening with my mouse. Sorry about that. So with vSphere, it requires 6.0 update 2 or newer. We're supporting all the way up to 6.5, the current release, and it injects a free plugin into vSphere to perform that. And again, as I talked about, we're using an IO filter built into vSphere, VIO filters, that talks directly to our backups over SMB. So this is a one-to-one relationship for rapid recovery into vSphere. And in some cases, leveraging this, in some cases, people are now using the vSphere virtual boot instead of the HeadStart Restore because it can facilitate a seamless migration. So there is a crossover. Obviously the virtual boot, there's an initial hit on the performance versus pre-staging, but it's a very easy process. So yeah, certainly there are scenarios where you may use virtual boot instead of HeadStart Restore. The virtual boot for vSphere won the VMworld data protection, so up against 145 submissions, so really certified at their highest level, which is pretty cool. So as we talked about with virtual boot, it's great for testing backups, it's great for temporary system failover, it's great for software testing. So this is a massive one. Using a sandbox, I can quickly boot up a backup into an isolated VM, disconnect the networking or put it in a sandpit network, do some testing without needing a whole heap of storage to provision that. So great for testing updates or software changes. Historical data access as well, where performance isn't necessarily required. And then obviously with the vSphere option, it can be a complete seamless migration rather than just a temporary VM. So with HeadStart Restore, as we've talked about, it's about leveraging, or pre-staging. HeadStart Restore is not designed to say, oh, something's gone wrong, let's kick off HeadStart Restore now. It's about kicking it off in advance. So for example, we might have spun up virtual boot to quickly get back up and running because it boots straight away. While that's running, the backups keep running, and we use HeadStart Restore to perhaps start restoring, 2 terabytes of data back into my data store or back into Hyper-V. So while that VM's running in virtual boot, HeadStart Restore is pre-staging. Or you might say, look, I don't want to use virtual boot at all. So while production servers are running and doing their backups, HeadStart Restore is pre-staging into a standby environment, facilitating that rapid cutover. So it's great if we have hardware failure. If you don't have a high availability and your host dies and you can't shift it, or there's not extra storage, we could fail over to a separate host. Or you had a physical server that failed, and you were pre-staging it so we could rapidly recover into a virtual environment. So, failure of an environment facilitates, good option to pre-staging or planned migration. So we've had some massive tier 1 providers use StorageCraft to migrate from one data center to another because they can back up within the VMs, they can replicate and pre-stage at the remote site with HeadStart Restore. So planned migrations by pre-staging the restores facilitates a rapid cutover. Virtual standby, so again, get hit by ransomware, we can quickly roll back to just before that happened with the pre-staged copy. So that's the HeadStart Restore, and we'll go in and do a demo of that in just a minute. The final solution I just wanted to cover off was our cloud services. So this is a tier 3 data center in Sydney that we have purpose built for disaster recovery in the cloud. It's got 5 nines of uptime, 99.999. It's a fully fault tolerant cloud that's scalable, designed for rapid recovery. It's customizable, so it's all controlled in a cloud portal. You define service levels and retention tiers based on what you require. And the control's yours. You've got access to that portal 24/7 to instantly virtualize your servers. It's all inclusive. There's no extra cost to perform that recovery. It's complete with very advanced network recovery options. You can pre-configure all of your firewall, VPN, port forwarding, public IPs. All of that stuff's configurable in the cloud, facilitating a rapid failover. And as I mentioned, one-click failover. So we've got a patented virtual machine policy, which allows you to say, here's my boot order, here's my pre-configured network, one click, and it will start virtualizing in the cloud. So this is really cool. If you're looking at a high availability solution that caters for your offsite requirements, if you haven't invested in that infrastructure already, then the StorageCraft Cloud is a really great option to say, look, rather than me investing in my own data center infrastructure and configuring HeadStart Restore, we could actually instead send a copy into the StorageCraft Cloud. So you might have HeadStart Restore on-site, you might have HeadStart Restore off-site, or you might use the StorageCraft Cloud, or a combination of the two. So some of the key requirements with the cloud is you want to be using our latest versions of Shadow Protect, the continuous incremental backups we talked about, where you want your backups encrypted. You need to be using Image Manager, and you need to have a DR plan. You need to understand, look, in the event of something going wrong, who needs access to what servers need to be virtualized in which order, where's everyone going to be. And once you know that information, you can start configuring the networking in our cloud to facilitate those requirements. So I think that's really key. So just going to wrap up with a demo now. Again, we're coming towards the end of our webinar. So if anyone does have any questions or there's anything you want me to elaborate on, please use the questions section in there. And then I'm just going to quickly cover for demo. So see, there's one question here I'm just going to cover off. Please advise of the minimum hardware for the virtual boot appliance. So basically, it needs to be a Windows machine. In fact, if you're backing up Linux machines, it could be a Linux one as well. But the backup DR server needs to obviously support virtualization. So in the BIOS, make sure VT is enabled. It needs to be 64-bit so that we can virtualize 64-bit backups, machines that you've backed up. And then obviously you need to think about the CPU and the memory. If it's got an i3 and only 2 gig of RAM, you really don't have any resource to recover a VM very well. You know, if it's a Windows 10 PC with an i7 and 16 gig of RAM, you might say, look, I could virtual boot one or two PCs on one or two servers on here with reduced amount of memory. Obviously it'll run a bit slower perhaps if it's got less memory, but that gets you up and running. You know, you might say, look, I've got another server here. If you're backing up sort of more than 5 different machines, would recommend running a server operating system to get more performance. You might put in, you know, dual CPUs. You might have 32, 64 gig of RAM or more, and then look at the RAID and how you're going to get the best performance. So I've got a bit of a guide that I can share with you, Malcolm. So I'll make sure that gets sent to you. That will cover off, you know, how best practice ways on configuring a backup server, you know, to suit the SMB right through to larger environments. So with HeadStart Restore, this webinar is not covering off the virtual boot so much. I just wanted to clarify the difference. So with HeadStart Restore, I've got the Image Manager software open here. Basically, if we right-click, create job, HeadStart Restore, this is what's going to facilitate the pre-staging. So by default, it's set to VMDK. We can, of course, choose VHD or VHDX or HyperV. With VMDK, obviously, we want to store those directly in a VMware data store. So that's where you're logging into your VMware data store. That requires the storage APIs in VMware. So it's not the free version of ESXi, doesn't allow the storage APIs. So I think it's the very initial license at a minimum is required. And then for Hyper-V, obviously, we're just going to store it on a local or network drive of the Hyper-V server. So I'm just going to select a path here. I'm just going to call this ES601 Soft Solutions. And now this is important. This is the lag time. So obviously with HeadStart Restore, it's pre-staging. We're setting this up now before something goes wrong. So the lag window is, I like to call this basically your reaction time. How long until a backup is then pushed into the standby VM. So you might set it to 4 hours, you might set it to 8 hours, you might set it to 24 hours or more. So basically what it's going to do is restore everything up until, in this example, 4 hours ago. And then as a new backup comes in, it waits for it to be 4 hours old, then automatically pushes it into the VM. So under volumes, we basically go in here and add in the different volumes. I've got encryption enabled, so I need to put in my password. It's detected that my C drive is only 15 gig, but it's going to create an existing 120 gig C drive. The D drive is 200 gig, so it'll create again a thin provision, but 200 gig formatted volume. So just go save. If I had selected VMware, obviously it would allow me to choose the data store and attach it directly to a VM. In this case, I've selected HyperV, so I would go into HyperV, create a blank VM, and attach these VHDXs so that it's ready to go. The first thing it's doing is obviously restoring the base image of both volumes. So that's the longest part of any backup technologies processes, to restore that initial base image and then go through the backup chain and restore those incrementals. So again, this happens now. Once it's restored up until 4 hours ago, this job will just sit on what's called idle. And as a new backup comes in, Image Manager will verify it. It'll wait for it to be 4 hours old and automatically extract it into those VHDX files that I've created here. So this job is now set up. It's done. There's nothing further I need to do. It will just sit there, and every 4 hours it will keep updating that with each backup. Once it's 4 hours old. So very easy. The fact that this takes some time is just the time it takes to restore the backup into the VHDX. So it's not designed to be a rapid recovery. That's where VirtualBoot would come in, but this is designed to restore everything in advance. And at the event of something going wrong, I click finalize, and I can roll back very quickly. So with this one here, I'm not going to see the options when I click finalize because it needs to have restored at least the base image. But basically what happens when it says here, choose when to finalize to, in this sort of white box here, this is where it will list every backup within the last 4 hours. So basically I can say, oh, there's been 15-minute increments, 24/7. So I might see, 4 hours worth of 15-minute backups in there. So what's that, 16 recovery point options. So I can roll back to any one of them because they haven't been committed into the virtual disk yet. And then all it has to do is fire across the last couple of increments up until that point, and within minutes, it can have that disk finalized and ready to boot. So very quick. When we boot that, because it's the raw VHDX files, it's not running off a compressed image chain, we're going to have that performance right away. So fantastic for migrations or for failover because it's pre-staged, it's ready to go, and when it boots, there's no further, performance hit, based on giving it the same amount of CPU and memory and that kind of thing. So very easy. It's an included technology with Image Manager. There's no extra licensing required. But it is designed to set up in advance and have that pre-staged. All right, so I've fired through that quite quickly. We're coming up towards the end of our session. If there's any more questions, please feel free to ask them now. Otherwise, as Matt mentioned, the session has been recorded. It will be emailed out to everyone as a follow-up, and then both StorageCraft and Soft Solutions will have it available on their vlogs as well. So thanks again for your time. There's no other questions that have come through just yet, so I'll just give that another minute. But yeah, thanks for your time. Just put our contact details up on the screen. If anyone wants more information, they need a bit more of a one-on-one or want to discuss, the best way to configure things a bit more. As I mentioned, Malcolm, I will reach out to you directly on your question around the BDR best practice guide. That'll help you a little bit more in tailoring a box to run Image Manager and perform VirtualBoot, or then adding on the HeadStart Restore on top of that. All right, thanks again, everyone. I'll finish here.